So I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. As I wait for my connections to show up here, it looks like Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So I don't know if y'all can hear the beginning of these videos or not, but it's great using Restream and Ecamm. I get a nice applause when I first go live. It's encouraging every day. So today's hat is representative of my time as a certified story brand guide. And to be clear, I'm no longer certified, but I learned so much being part of that community. I learned about things that I really found myself not wanting to pursue. For instance, I decided or I learned that I didn't want to lead a marketing agency. I didn't want to be involved in the creation of marketing efforts necessarily. Now, I do enjoy having conversations about marketing and strategy and even, especially, I guess, the tools that enable us to do marketing well. I love to talk about those things from a strategic perspective. In fact, as I grew in relationships with people in the story brand community, it's what contributed to me being able to continue to build my business over the last few years, providing support to a handful of those people who found their place in creative efforts and leading small marketing agencies. So that was a lot of fun. But what I found was that I really enjoyed the strategic conversation side of working with those great people, those top performers, and supporting the work that they were doing. It was just an amazing experience overall. So yes, this hat is representative of that. It's SB7, which stands for the Story Brand 7-part story framework that they teach and that their guides use to employ great effective marketing materials collateral for their clients. And so if you've not read Building a Story Brand, I would encourage it highly. So timing has been off a little this week, but I did want to show up. It's my commitment to be here every day, unless something drastically changes my schedule and gets in the way completely. So here I am. And pardon me for 1 second. Still recovering from some sinus issues, but certainly on the better side of that. So what did I want to come here to share today? So it certainly wasn't the story brand component necessarily. However, in my devotional a couple days ago, I was reading the alignment between my devotional and what the Bible teaches and what we do when it comes to marketing. And one of the things that stands out is something that certainly resonates true for me, and it's the need to show up authentically as yourself and to be able to communicate clearly. And by communicating clearly, I'm talking about being clear about not just the message you're sending to people, but your intentions as well. That's part of the message that you're sending to people. If your intentions aren't true and they're not clearly communicated, it's hard for people to know that that you're there to support them and do business with them. And so I would just encourage you to think about those pieces, constantly learning to be a better communicator in the things that we're doing is helpful from a business perspective, but just in relationships with people in general, when you can clearly communicate your intentions, when you can clearly communicate that you're there to support them in their adventures, the things that they're doing, or their work, it creates stronger connections with them. So that leads me to today's actual message, which is really continuing on with that piece. If you are a veteran or another top performer, you can probably relate to what I'm about to share. And it's that my observation that many leaders, I wouldn't go as far to say as most, because I think there's a lot of really great leaders out there, but there's a lot of leaders who are using their power and their position to compel others to what they want. And I realize this to be true in several areas. It's clearly something I've observed in the military, senior leaders and even junior leaders alike will often lean to using their position and their power as a way to compel people. And I'll get more into that in just a second as I share some of my experience. But we see this unfold in politics where, there's many politicians we could look at. We've seen that demonstrate their ability to be above reproach when it comes to the boundaries of the law, or the things that they've exempted themselves from when it comes to taxation and other laws that are in the books that they've contributed to creating and enforcing for the general population. But they're using their power and their authority to sidestep those things. We've seen it in the superior or I guess the ultimately wealthy folks in some cases. Not all of them. Again, not all rich people are bad, right? But all bad people who are rich are still bad people. And so we see it sometimes there where they've been able to negotiate their way out of being held accountable for things that many of us wouldn't be able to escape from because we don't have that same level of power and authority. Or in the good people's instance, we choose not to leverage that power and authority to persuade others or to convince others to do the things that we want them to do. So I'll go back to my first experience as an instructor in the military is when I really started to observe this phenomenon of leaders using their power and position to compel others. And it looks a lot like yelling and using your grade or rank to compel people to do the things that they're supposed to be doing or that you want them to do. And what I found through observing this was the response was physical. You could visually see the responses in people in the way they acted and the way that they learned and the way that they were able to grow, I feel was extremely limited in comparison. So I made a conscious effort then to not use my position or my power to influence others. In fact, I looked at how could I serve the people who I'm leading in the military, because at the end of the day, what I really wanted was for them to grow beyond my own capability. I wanted them to be the best analysts that they could be. I wanted them to be the best leaders that they could be, because the people who fall in behind them deserve to be treated with dignity and respect and to be treated as future leaders of the military and to be successful in their endeavors. The intelligence community depends on their ability to be great at their work. And so I really wanted them to be empowered to do more than I had ever done and to do more than I would be able to do. And the best way I found to do that was simply to lead from a place of serving them, from a place of treating them with kindness, dignity, and respect. Just because they were junior to me didn't mean they didn't deserve the same level of respect as any other person around me. So that was my experience, and I've relied on that heavily ever since. And what I found is that by leading to serve, leading from a place of kindness and being invested in influence versus power and position has led to tremendous opportunities in my work and in my life and in the relationships that I've built as a result. So that's really the message I came here to share today. And I'd love to hear from you what your experience has been, or where you see these people leading through position and power versus a place of serving others, and what the results you think were from those experiences. Were they limiting other people's ability to grow? There was a conversation on Clubhouse this morning that surrounded this entire idea as well, and the gist of it was that people were leading from those places, scared to enable others, scared to lead others to a point where they would surpass them, and so they felt like they constantly had to be achieving and doing more instead of relying on what they've enabled, which is teaching others to be better, so that we can continue to surround ourselves with great minds, great people doing great things. And I believe that that's the best way to lead. So Yes, I'd love to hear your experiences or where you might have observed either of these scenarios taking place in your work, in your life, and what have you done to adapt a different style, or have you? I'd love to hear from you. Until tomorrow, I hope that you have a wonderful day, and thanks for joining me.